This brings us to your wonderful 2024 film Conclave, in which you play Cardinal Thomas Lawrence, Dean of the College of Cardinals, charged with overseeing the election of a new pope at a moment in which he himself is having a crisis of faith. Adapted from Robert Harris's best-selling novel by Peter Strawn. I wonder what you think grabbed you the most about this. The I think faith, it seems to be something that you've been you've explored in prior projects, and crises of faith. It's something you've talked about having had yourself when you were a young, very young, I guess you would say, even boy. Just what was the thing that hooked you on this?
Well, I can talk about some things that are maybe things that anyone would feel reading the great screenplay by Peter Strawn. It was a wonderful read. It was a page turner. The sense of tension, the sense of political anticipation in this conclave of cardinals, that was very tangible on the page. When I knew Edward Berger was going to direct it, I was very excited. And there was a wonderful speech in it, a homily given about the importance of doubt. But I think there was a spirit about this character who initially in the book by Robert Harris is called Lomeli. He's Italian. We made him English. And sometimes there's a spirit in the screenplay. You can't really, you go on a gut feeling about something, and you sort of have a feeling, dare I say it, where you're going, I'm meant to do this. Doesn't happen very often. And I had that feeling for a mix of the reasons I've mentioned, but something just was just an atmosphere and something about Lawrence Lomeli which really spoke to me.
And Edward Berger was coming off of, I guess the chronology, it was a little overlapping, I think, but coming off of All Quiet on the Western Front, which was terrific, the newer version. There was you were going to be surrounded in this film by an incredible group of veteran actors like yourself, among them Stanley Tucci, John Lithgow.
Stanley was attached, or I think he was not quite confirmed, but when I said yes, we did not at that point have John or Isabella or Lucien Massamati or Carlos Diaz on board. So Stanley's a friend, and I was very hopeful he would be in it. But at that point, it was Edward, and Edward's just his sheer insight and intelligence and the way he talks about. He's a wonderfully wise and insightful man, and those qualities were incredibly appealing to me. To who directs you is crucial, obviously.
I think we've all gathered from the everything this evening that you are very thorough in your preparation for all of your roles. In this case, there were quite a few people associated with the church who you consulted, right?
Well, I did, yes. I met some people in the Catholic Church in England and in Rome. Wise and kind men who did not look askance at the project. They were just interested and were happy to talk about. One of these men I talked to, I asked, doubt, do you ever have doubt? And this is someone very high up in the church. And he said, yes, doubt is part of what we deal with. It's part of being a priest, you know. I only encountered people who were very wise and kind, not prescriptive at all. I had memories of very strict priests from school who I think would take, and I'm sure there are some Catholic priests who will not want to look at conclave or be predisposed to dislike it. But the people I talked to had a much more wiser overview, and they were very helpful to me. And indeed, in my own family, I've had on my mother's side a great uncle who was a theologian and another uncle who was also a theologian. What? Sebastian Moore. That lady knows his name. Yeah. He was a radical thinker, and his books are quite hard to understand, I have to say. But he always spoke. I tell you what, I have to say, he was a. We always loved having. We called him Uncle Patrick, in fact, and he always spoke at any family event that involved any kind of religious ceremony, and it didn't matter whether it was in an Anglican church or not, or even just in a room. But he would always speak with such incredible wisdom about faith. And although not all of us were practicing anything, but he brought a wonderful quality of humor and mostly love. Love. He brought love into the room in a wise and often witty way. And I felt his. I don't know whether I couldn't. I'd be ridiculous. I said I felt his presence, but I certainly, the quality of his wisdom suddenly came into focus for me when I was doing Lawrence, playing Lawrence.
Edward Berger seems to, I could be mistaken, but I've even seen some behind the scenes shots of you guys making this film where the camera is sometimes right in your face. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
I wonder, does that give you pause or excite you or what? Because I know as a viewer, one of the things that's always exciting and I think special about watching you is you could be technically not doing anything and you are still somehow fascinating to watch you think, watch you really do nothing, which is not often. You can't say that for everybody. There's something really amazing about that, and I just wonder, when it's right in your face, how do you feel about that?
Well, you've got to. How to explain it? Of course, you know it's there, but I think you've got to hold on. Hopefully, you've thought about what you're thinking, and you've got to be in that place where you are. Those thoughts of Lawrence, you've thought. I mean, the actors thought about what am I thinking in this moment? What is my focus? Often, of course, the camera might be right here, but you've got to look at something. Even if the cinematographer directs you to look just under the lens, you've got to sort of pretty much visualize what you're looking at, and certainly got to know what you're thinking. And if you just sit into that, then the camera disappears for you. And I think but sometimes it can be very technical. Sometimes someone can say, "Can you shift your eye just a bit there?" And and also now by having directed, I know that those tiny adjustments for the lens also are part of the storytelling mechanism. I think earlier on I would be quite impatient with stuff that was technical like that, but then you just get to see, well, no. Suddenly you realize that look, that angle, that is as much of value as your interior performance. The things have to come together.
Last question from me, and then we'll go to a clip of Conclave and then have a special close of the evening. But I wonder, when you have a evening like tonight where we've gone back and looked at where this has all come from and all the amazing work leading up to Conclave, can you give us your kind of step outside of yourself as much as it's possible for a moment and just what does this performance in Conclave represent to you? It seems like to me it's built upon and wouldn't have been possible maybe without so many of the other great performances we've talked about. It feels like this is a coming together, kind of a momentous thing to you've always been great, but I think this kind of takes it to a new level. And I just wonder if you share that sense.
Um, well, I'm you may be right. I'm sure you're right. I mean, I think hopefully you get better over the years. I always feel it's never. I mean, I've looked at these clips, and there's one part of me that's going, "Oh, that's not very good." But sometimes, look, I mean, Conclave, as I tried to say, it was one of those things where I had a feeling about connecting to the part, but you don't know how it's going to turn out. But it's good when you have that feeling like, oh, this feels like something I really can. There are parts where you feel that would be fun to do, or that's not really me, but it'll test me. Like in Bruges, that sort of character's a long way from my lived experience, but great part. But I felt sometimes, and some parts are closer to your lived experience. And clearly, I'm not a priest, but I felt there was something in the, not just in the part, but in the. There's a search. Yes, it functions as a political thriller, but there's a search for who is the right leader of a faith that has the right qualities of a spiritual leader. The Pope is real, the Pope exists, so whoever the Pope is important in our world. So that there was a meaning there that resonated with me. And I felt Lawrence is the part who has to guide the conclave with real integrity and wisdom. And of course, he's carrying conflicts himself. And he weakens a moment and his own ambition comes forward. But I think there was a sort of poetic harmony in all the elements, not just in the role, in the writing, in what it's about. And I felt with Edward, it was very simple, but I felt held by Edward's wisdom and his experience. And that's when you step into the river and you try to do your best.
Thanks. We're going to take a look at Conclave, and then we have a special finale to the evening. So here's Conclave.